What is up, my Drak Kings, Drak Queens, and squids of every Nexus form? Caleb here with the Elestrals, and today I'd like to show you a deck that I have been very excited for quite some time with the release of Shattered Stars Month 8 Lunar. And why waffle on about it? Let's hop in. Today we are talking about Drakking. As always, at the end of the video, we'll have some gameplay for you as well. But first, let's go through our deck profile. So despite Drakking being right here at the front, we're actually going to start with Mudlet. So this deck is really just about playing valuable guys that generate advantage on the board, kind of like what Fives was doing at its height of its performance. Mudlet and the Necruff just do good stuff on board. Also, we have Eddie. So you have basically 6 copies of Eddie between Mudlet and Eddie. You have Smoltuga and Necruff, which Smoltuga thins your deck by searching the Necruff, and also is a 5 defender that you could then ascend into a Drakking. We're also on double Dratagwa and 2 Veritaqua. Something that this deck can struggle with in some board states is being able to out large defense guys without having Drakking on board. And so Veritaqua can help you do that very effectively. And then we're playing a 1 of Kuribis because, you know, we're on the rock and a hard play stuff anyway. And so Eddie Kuribis, you can just get into this. And this is a very interesting in-engine way to out something like a Chronodial. So if you're able to ascend into Kuribis, either through rock and hard place targeting something that isn't Chronodial and a back row, or just hard ascending into this is non-targeting removal. So you can just take out a Chronodial and then heal like 4 spirits back. The sort of theory here is really just, this is a go second deck. You want to be able to interact with your opponent, whether it's Mudlet or Eddie swapping things to defense and hitting over them. You have Smoltuga getting into your Necruff, which is just, these are just good guys to sit on a defense or an attack position. Dratagwa heals, and Veritaqua can out some sticky defense position guys. And then outside of that, with the release of Celebrations actually this week, we have Gloombat to pair with Tadpuff and our 2 Drakking. Something that you can do is play 3 Drakking instead of the Kuribis. Inside the Kuribis, I'm playing it in main. But this is a nice sort of quick ascension line you can use to get to Drakking. Now, one thing that is very notable is that Gloombat is really only good in the first game, in my opinion. Something that you would side out into game 2 and 3, because once your opponent knows you're on Gloombat, they will be playing around the set back row by only setting 1 at a time and keeping your Gloombat from being online. So you want to side out of it once you've shown that you're actually on it. Or if your opponent thinks you might be on it, you want to side out of it as well. But also, your Gloombat can just be a solid way to out your opponent's back row if they're playing something like Solar Nexus or Water Nexus or Fire Nexus or whatever. You can just normal cast this and then kill it off to pop, you know, something that's overcommitted like an Aeolus with 5 spirits under it. So those are all your guys. Game plan is essentially just good value Elestrals that eventually stick the board and get you to your Drakking. You can play 3 Drakking. I'm only on 2. And you can side out the Kuribis. You can put Kuribis inside if you want to be running 3 Drakking in main. For the rest of our deck, our non-Elestrals, our runes, we are running a single Earthquake. We're running 3 Rock and a Hard Place. Obviously, we're on the 1 of Resting of Laurels, recently limited on the on the Tartarus list, the Tartar sauce list, the Tartar list. We've got triple Ambro. We've got a 1 of Atlantis in here, double Tsunami. For the rest of our back row, we have triple PTA, and then 3 Nog, and something that you probably haven't seen before, 3 drops of Lead. Let's kind of walk through our deck building decisions here. I just wanted to get it all out. So we've got Earthquake and Resting, obviously. These are removal pieces. And because we're on Mudlet, we can justify Earthquake in the deck. Rock and Hard Place plus these basically means you have 5 pieces removal in your main deck, which feels really good. You then obviously have the 3 Ambrosia, and then Atlantis sort of just as the meta progresses, we're going to see more and more stadiums become popular as a result of Loveleth going to 1 and Laurels going to 1. And so Atlantis is just a nice in-engine way to out your opponent's field spell and then put in some sort of pressure. Another thing that this can do is make your Drakking an 8, which can be relevant. Sometimes it's hard to get over some Elestrals. Sometimes, like, Drakking being a 7 can sometimes be a weird threshold, so getting it to an 8 can matter sometimes. Nog plus our drops of Lead here. We're just trying to, this is a go second deck. We want to draw into Drakking. We want to get it out as fast as possible. We want the turbo tools like Tadpuff and Gloombat. And so we're running, as many ways to do that as possible. And then 5 back row. It's kind of crazy, especially with how base set was so back row dominant. We only really care about the poison tipped and the tsunami though. We want to be able to keep our guys alive, and we want to keep guys off board. So we don't really care to be playing much more than this. The sort of theory is we just want to see a back row the entire game, maybe 2, no more than that, because we should be winning by the time we would have resolved more anyway. We want those to be ways to Drakking. For our spirits, we are on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 Leviathan. We got 3 Owloon, and then we're running our 4 Tartarus for the Mudlet and Earthquake and a single Zaptor. This is sort of a little funny thing. One, because we're side decking Boombat, but also you can hypothetically steal an Astrabbit and then re-enchant it on your turn, on your next turn. But really, it's in here because we don't want to have to side 2 Zaptor spirits for our Boombat. Speaking of Boombat, let's look at the side deck here, which will change based off of the meta and what we see with the upcoming tournament tomorrow. We've got Boombat, we've got our 3rd Veritaqua, running 2 Specterus. Specterus, it feels really great into some matchups, but it's not something you want to be main decking. We have our 2nd Atlantis. We have double Dense Fog. I personally am a fan of 2 Dense Fog. You could play 3 Dense Fog and then cut Tsunami, or put it into main deck and swap that for something else, because you ideally would like to be on 3 Tsunami. I just couldn't find a good spot for the 3rd one. Kind of felt like the last card that I didn't want to play. We've got our triple Shield of Achilles, and then we're siding the additional Owloon for Specterus Dense Fog, and we have the additional Thunder Spirit for our Boombat, and the occasional steal an Astrabbit, I guess. But that is this deck list. It's performed really well in testing. It is something that I very much am expecting to see a good bit of performance at the upcoming Daybreak tournament. That's actually tomorrow. I'm expecting people to be on it quite a good bit as well. If I was playing, this is what I would be running probably. You call me biased because I opened an X out of 10 full art Drakking, Stellar Drakking, but I do really like this deck. I think it's really, really cool. It's really fun. A lot of people that I've shown this deck to have said that it just operates in a very different way than most Elestrals decks, and it makes it really interesting and really engaging, even before the changes to the Invoke removal and the Lavalith change, which certainly those changes benefit this deck massively. But there's a lot of theory and there's a lot of discussion behind what this list could look like. Like I said, this is very much a go second list, which is why we're on way less counter runes, why we're on stuff like Nog and Drops of Lead, why we're on the turbo tools like Gloombat and Tadpuff. These are all things that you could very well change, and you could run a much more standard list that plays us closer to like how you'd play 5s, with a bunch of back row, a bunch of just every turn is a good cast, and then you want to stick a good 5 and then ascend into Drakking. That's the other way that you can play this. It's very valid as a deck that I've also played. It's how I started with this list. But I personally really, really like this go second style Drakking, where we're just trying to see as many cards as we can. We're trying to see as many of our pineapple squids as we can. And we're just trying to turbo through our opponent's board as fast as possible and not let them establish anything. So that is the deck. I'm going to throw it over to a game that we have for you to show off this deck and how it plays up into the solar matchup. I will note, I believe this is pre-Tartarus list, so if you see some minor changes between that and this, it's because of that, but generally the deck plays the exact same. Like I said, we're only benefited by the changes to the Invoke removal that we saw on the Tartarus list. In fact, this deck actually wasn't on Laurels or Earthquake until those changes, because we didn't really care that much, but now since it's only 2, it's worth the slots in the main deck. So with that, let's go ahead and let's hop into the clash. I'll stop yapping and I'll see you in the clash. So here we are with our clash for this deck profile. We're playing against Yura Vespera, my good friend, who will be on Solar. He's going to go ahead and start off with Astrabbit, looking at the top 3 cards of his deck, selecting one to put into his hand and then shuffling the rest back. He's going to go ahead and just pass from there. I'm going to expend to draw, something that you really feel confident doing in Drakking. Looks like I drew a very rune-heavy hand, And so we'll be setting 3 and passing back to Yura, who will start off his turn with a Corvishine. Corvishine's going to use the effect to foretell 2, looking at the top 2 cards of his deck, and then putting them back on top, drawing 1, and then putting 1 from his hand back on top. He's going to swap the Ass Rabbit to attack position, and he's going to go ahead and swing it for 1 damage direct into my Spirit deck. Spend 1, and we'll draw for turn here and play a Specterus. This is a little bit of an older list, so Specterus isn't something that I'm maining anymore, but it's something that you can absolutely consider in certain versions of this list. And it's one that, actually, this may have been post-side, where I may have sided in Specterus just to be able to get over some of the 4 defense solar Elestrals that Yura is on. He's going to go ahead and start his turn off by Cryoblasting the Specterus, and then going right into the very scary card for Solar of Exaltus. I see that, and I immediately have to Poison Tipped Arrow that. Exaltus sticking around for too long can be very dangerous to play into, especially when Yura's going to go ahead and put down an Apollo with 3 spirits under it, which means that he could threaten a lot in following turns. He's going to go ahead and use Apollo's effect to foretell 3. Going to hit Dratora on the very last card there. Also seeing Cryobast, Ass Rabbit, which are very strong. And then he's going to go ahead and go for the Exaltus to Nexus effect over to Corvishine. And he's going to use the effect to both foretell and then search his deck. So he's doing it in this way so he can foretell the 3. He can shuffle away this top 3, which he wasn't happy with prior when he used Corvishine. And then he's going to go ahead, draw 1, put back a card from his hand to his deck that he didn't want to see anymore, shuffle it away by adding another Exaltus using Exaltus's effect. So go ahead and set a card face down and swing 1 direct with Exaltus. Again, this is something that we don't feel too bad about. Drakking doesn't feel too bad. Playing slow, I'm going to expend to pop the Exaltus and draw for turn. We've been slow rolling pretty much so far. Pretty effectively. We're going to keep our slow roll. We're trying to stick guys. We're trying to draw into our Drakking, our Kerberos potentially. And we're just going to Dratagua, heal 2, pass back to Yura, which looks like they're going to go ahead and start off their turn with the Exaltus that we know they search from deck to hand. They're going to use the effect to Nexus again to then search for an Ethereal from deck to hand. They're considering where they're going to Nexus to. Looks like it's going to the Apollo. Go and search out for, I believe they searched a Lustragon here. No, they went for Exaltus. Pretty smart to go for Exaltus, into Exaltus. Basically, you only want to be searching Lustragon if you haven't normal cast that turn already. So it's the next time that he uses Exaltus. I'm going to go ahead go for the Nabi. Nabi, no effect because it does nothing. Attempt to swing over Exaltus, and I'm going to eat a Altar of Stars here, which will Nexus to the Corvishine, swap Nabi to defense position, and then Corvishine will trigger to go ahead and foretell 3 cards from the top of Yura's deck. They're going to hit Dratora, Temple of the Sun, and Cryoblast. Very interesting. Don't know what they pick, but Temple of the Sun never feels too bad to hit because very quickly we could see this Exaltus hitting 6 or 5 attack. Corvishine gets to a 5 defense pretty quickly, and it looks like they may have stacked the Cryoblast because it looks like they went ahead and ripped it on the Nabi here, and then playing Dratora for turn to go ahead, and now they get to do the little yoinky sploinky where they're going to Nexus off Corvishine for Dratora's effect. They're going to heal 2, then they'll get to Exaltus, Nexus back to Corvishine to go ahead and foretell 3 and search their deck, which is what they're going to do exactly. The question is, what order are they doing? It looks like they're going to search first, then foretell, so that way they can see what the next top 3 cards of their deck are going to be. They do see Dratora, they see Earthquake, pretty solid things off the top. They're going to draw, put 1 back, and immediately rip the Earthquake to pop the Dratagua. Something very understandable here because it means that Yura is going to be able to swing for quite a bit of damage here, and also is guaranteeing that I can't Drakking on the crackback into a pretty solid board for Yura that would be very nice to be able to pick apart, quite honestly. They're going to go ahead and play Temple of the Sun, swing Corvishine, which I'm going to Shield of Achilles, and then they'll punch for 1 with Exaltus. So I'm taking a total of 3 out of my Spirit deck here to stay alive. We're going to go for the Drakid, which feels pretty good knowing what I have in hand. And it looks like Yura's making a little bit of misplay. This is something that he acknowledged pretty quickly. He goes for Poison Tipped Arrow, assuming that I don't actually have the Rock and Hard Place in hand. I do, and I'm going to target, I believe, the Exaltus and the Temple of the Sun. He's going to let the Temple of the Sun go, and we'll go for the Drakid effect to ascend into the beautiful the wonderful full art stellar pineapple from deck. We're gonna go ahead and get that bad boy out here, and we're gonna proceed right to the battle phase and attempt to swing over the Exaltus to steal it, which we will do successfully. We'll go to our board with our little "What's up, my Nimbugs?" My shout out to Dymax. He sent me that with some cards recently. Become like a sort of de facto token I'm using for all these remote dual Drakking games. Yura is going to go ahead and start off his turn just by ascending the Lustragon, which is very scary. He's going to use the effect to Nexus, and then the effect to pop targeting Drakking, and I will respond with Tsunami to swap that Lustragon to defense position. This is something that seems very scary from my position, but I don't feel too bad because I've got that Exaltus on my board, which I can immediately just ascend right into the Drakking, which does not feel bad at all. Because I believe I water enchanted the Exaltus, I actually also have the Curubus in hand, which if I wanted to here, I could have ascended to Curubus, pop, Lustragon, heal 3, leaves me with an empty board, but Yura also is on nothing here. So if I didn't have the Drakking, I still had a very solid game plan regardless, because I just am drawing my 2-drops the way I want to. But in this case, we can swing over the Lustragon, we can take out this very big threat, and then we can steal it for ourselves and swing for 2 damage with our Lustragon. And Yura has nothing to do but to take it. They're going to take 3 damage here, leaving them on, I think, like 3-ish spirits, 2 spirits, something like that. And what are you going to do? I've got 2 7 attackers that are swinging for 2 damage apiece. And I believe at this point, yeah, Yura's just going to scoop it up. There's not much they can do from there. I also have the Curubus that I could ascend into to put more pressure on board. And this is going to be a game win for Drakking. And there you have it. Upcoming meta threat Drakking. A very fun deck, one that I enjoy a lot. What do you think about Drakking? Do you think that it's something to actually be worried about? Do you think that it is viable to do a true go second deck in something like Elestrals already? Very curious to hear what you think about the deck. Tell me what kind of builds you've got going on, because there's many different ways you could take this. And with that, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Peace out, my Nimbugs.